Howdy. Now that the clutch is removed, I wanted to talk about the method for replacing the clutch. It's not too hard to figure out, but the first thing I needed to do was to remove the pilot bearing. It was all metal and it appeared to work fine. And I tried a bunch of tools in my shop, including this one and an Allen wrench, tried to shove it in there and then hammer it out. I could not figure out how to get that thing out. What ended up working for me is to use this big giant bearing puller. I thought I would hook it inside there and then use this, push it against the flywheel there and yank it out. And that didn't work. It just wanted to open up more and more. So what I did was I just hooked this in there and just yanked on it and it came right out. So that was nice. Then I put in some anti-seize. I don't know if I needed that, but it can't hurt. And then shoved the bearing in there. I used a rather large socket. It didn't have to quite match the size. As you can see, I kind of pushed in that red thing. The black grease fitting cap. But I adjusted it so that I was hitting on the metal and it worked in just fine. Functions really great. What does that thing do? I'm going to cover that in just a minute. As you can see on here, I used an orbital sander, because that's what I had in the shop, to sand this down. It appears to have ridging. It looks a lot worse than it actually is. There's a little bump there, there's a little bumping there, but it's rather smooth. Now, it says in the Ginjal video to replace this or have it machined down to be even. But since it's not really brakes, it's just providing a friction surface for the clutch plate, I think it's going to be fine this time around. I'm no professional, so maybe I'm wrong, but you're welcome to critique me on that one. Part of the reason I didn't just get it machined was it was kind of difficult to get these off. These are hex-headed bolts, no matter what they look like, but I wasn't in a position to be able to stop the thing from turning when I put the torque on there to take those off, so I just figured it's going to work fine for this right now. So the next step is going to be to put on the new clutch friction plate and the pressure plate, or whatever that is. So I'm going to show that just right now. Alright, so my clutch kit came with this pilot bearing, came with the throwout bearing, which I'll show in a little while. Also came with the friction disc and the new spring assembly. This thing's kind of heavy. So and it came with this alignment tool. As you can see, there's spindles on there. That's for aligning the parts together. I'll show you how it works. This is the friction plate. I can tell which side goes in because the plate is supposed to be in contact with the flywheel. And if I turn it like this, it won't be. So it has to be like this. Now I'm going to insert this thing right through here. It's really simple. And then the end of this fits right into the pilot bearing. Pilot meaning it lines right up. There's that. So then, I need to put this on here. Gotta adjust my light a little bit. After I get this thing installed, I'd like to show how it works. Ooh, assuming I can get it on there correctly. Alright, so. Well, that's going to be fun. Alright. I should have prepared those screws. Alright. I'm just going to start these screws with my fingers. The tractor service manual that I got for this tractor says that these need to be torqued to 12 to 16 foot-pounds. It's really not a lot. I'm kind of surprised by that, but it also explains why it was so easy to take off. I thought I was going to be in for a fight with that, but it ended up being very easy to take these bolts off when I removed it. So that's how we're going to do that. Alright, I think I got them tightened. There's not a lot of pressure on those, but it's clicking at 14 pounds. It said it had to be 12 to 16, so that's where we are on that one. Okay, so got the new clutch plate, the new pressure plate on. Let's talk about this thing. So you can see right here and here, and there's a third one on the back, there are little fingers that come out to the middle. Those fingers come out to here, and there's a lever here, and there are springs underneath. The idea being that pushing on these fingers, or not pushing on them, I guess, activates there's a big giant metal plate. Almost looks like a brake rotor right here. This is the pressure plate, I guess, and this is the friction plate right in there. So, right now, this is being pushed so that the clutch plate is against the flywheel. When you press down on your clutch, the idea is that you're relieving this pressure and allowing the engine power to be separated from the transmission. And the way that works is going to be according to this spindle back here. Let me show you that. Okay, now we're looking at the back part of the tractor. This is the bar, basically, that transmits the engine power to the transmission. It does so through these splines right here. When I press down the clutch pedal, I'm touching it with my hand, you can see that it pushes down, pushes toward the engine. That action places this face, you can see it's kind of rubbed off right there. This is the old throwout bearing. It presses that against those fingers that are on the inside of the clutch. So when it pushes on that, it activates the springs and pulls that pressure plate away, and probably separates that clutch plate off these gears. So then this can spin, because you might still be moving, or it can completely stop based on whether you're stopping your engine. But either way, when you press down your clutch, you're disengaging the power, then you can shift the gears, and then when you release the clutch, the clutch plate is able to go right back on the splines and activate the movement of the tractor. So when you hear grinding in your gears, or grinding when you're re-engaging your clutch, it's grinding on this, at least in this kind of clutch system or transmission system. And I assume that works for a lot of different vehicles, but this is an easy way to show it. This little end, of course, fits in the pilot bearing just like my little lineup tool does. And the lineup tool is here to help make sure that actually, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. That doesn't turn. Anyway, but the next step I'm going to take is to replace my throwout bearing. I have to pull these two springs off. As you can see when you activate the clutch, what you're doing is the clutch is linked to this bar right here. And so I'm turning the bar, which activates a little two-pronged fork that's here. The two-pronged fork is attached to a carrier that holds the throwout bearing, and that two-pronged fork has springs on it. Those springs look to be in pretty good condition, so I'll just disconnect those and pull out the thing and try to get that throwout bearing out of there. It could take a press, so it could take a couple days or something for me, I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. After I replace the throwout bearing, I might clean out the inside of this and then work to start putting it back together. That's how that works. Okay, so I'm trying to remove the throwout bearing from this carrier. The two springs go in these little holes here. And I don't have a press, but I do have a bench vise. What I have here is a 1.5 inch DeWalt impact socket that just happens to fit up with that. So what I'm going to do is duct tape around this, and then I'm going to put these little pieces of 2x4 in behind the bearing in the vise, and then hopefully it'll push this against the back of this and push that thing right out of the bearing. Let's see how it goes. Okay, well, replacing the throwout bearing was really easy. I did a little scraping out of the inside there, and then wrestled and wrestled and wrestled to get this thing lined up. You pull the little plastic part out before you do that, of course. And then I got two bolts, one on this side and one on the other one, to help line it up. And then as I was tightening up, I tightened up the other side, and I tightened up this side just a little bit, just to kind of help it kind of come back together, coax it together. I hear the whoomp of it, everything engaging back in there. So it appears to be ready to finish up and do. So the clutch is replaced. Hopefully my transmission works. We'll see. Anyways, that's it for that. Thanks for watching.